so more often than not, you want to choose a topic when you have the choice that interests you. Why would it be a good idea to choose something that you're specifically interested in? What do you guys think? What do you think, Jimmy?
So you have like more information on it since
Yeah,
like you know more about it.
absolutely. Ethan, what are you thinking?
I feel like um it's important if like it if you pick your own topic, then you're like it's not someone else's topic. You pick that topic, and like 90% of it, it's you like that topic, so you want to write about it. Like
Definitely.
if you're really interested in like let's say um like uh biology, I think, and then like you're very interested in like viruses and how they work, and you write something about viruses, you're obviously gonna like go deeper and research more at home.
That's an excellent point, Jimmy. Sorry, Ethan. So to combine what Jimmy said with what Ethan said, super important to choose a topic when possible that you are interested in, because as Jimmy said, you probably already have an understanding, some knowledge, some points you could work with. And to Ethan's point, we can then are interested in going a little bit deeper and learning a lot more about the topic. And that gets us to gathering the details. So Elaine, can I ask you to read the points for gathering details?
Learn as much as you can about the topic before you start writing. Consider what to emphasize in the writing, either an interesting part of the topic or your personal feelings about it. This will be the focus or thesis of your writing. Decide which
Excellent. Keep going. Thanks.
decide which details you want to include in your writing. Also decide on the best way to organize the details.
Perfect. Now, by a show of hands, who has had to identify a focus or a thesis in their writing? Are we familiar with the term thesis? Excellent. Okay, let's move on. Step number 2, if you remember, and you can look to the right-hand side, we move on to the actual writing phase of it. So we can all imagine what this includes, but let's go through some specifics. Aaron, can I get you to read the 3 bullet points?
Okay, when you write your first draft, concentrate on getting your ideas on paper. Don't try to produce a perfect piece of writing. Use the details you collected in your pre-writing plan as general guides, but feel free to add new ideas as you go along. Make sure your writing has a beginning, middle, and an ending.
Excellent. So to reiterate some of the points that Aaron discussed, definitely we're not trying to produce a perfect piece of writing. Really, we want to get our ideas out and not interrupt our train of thought as we're generating ideas. Where we go through and make it perfect is in the editing phase. And then definitely a beginning, middle, and end. Sometimes that just means having an introduction and then discussing all of your points and ensuring that you have a conclusion to wrap up all your ideas. Any questions about step number 2? Let's move on then. Step number 3. All right, Jimmy, take a deep breath. Improving your writing. What do these bullet points say?
Review your first draft after setting it aside for a while. Use these questions as a general revising guide. Do I sound interesting in my topic? Do I say enough about my topic? Are the ideas clear and in the right order? Does the beginning draw the reader into the writing? Does the closing remind the reader about the importance of the topic? Are the nouns specific and the verbs strong? Are the modifiers, adjectives, and adverbs clear and well chosen? Are the sentences varied? Do they read smoothly? Try to have at least one other person review your work. Make as many changes as necessary to improve your first draft.
Excellent. So we've got a long, essentially a checklist here that we can come back to. We can actually come back to this slide specifically and run through these questions or any other questions that you guys are used to going through to do your revisions. And then how many of you do peer editing at school or have had another person look at their writing? Ethan, have you done peer editing?
What do you mean by peer editing?
Sharing anything that you've written with a friend to go through and do some grammar, etc.
I think so.
Good. Elaine, you've got your hand up. You do peer editing often at school? And do you enjoy that process? Has it been helpful?
Yes, it's usually funner because like we get to do it with a classmate and not just by ourselves.
Absolutely. So you get a little bit of discussion working with your classmate. Erin, what about you? Same thing?
I do it sometimes, and
Okay.
I think that sometimes it's helpful, but other times, like they might not like do it right. Like I'm trying to convey one point, but after like their opinions don't
Correspond to what
exactly
you were thinking.
correspond to like my original goal of the paper.
Absolutely. And that happens anytime you have somebody look over your work, but it can be helpful because the teacher is still a second person. And you want to make sure that what you're saying, to Erin's point, for all of you, is communicated in the way that you intend. What about you, Jimmy? Do you do a lot of peer editing or sharing with classmates to review your work?
Yeah. So like for
Excellent. Continue. Sorry.
so like for editing, I just like to like talk to them about their like dumb mistakes and like other stuff.
Mhm.
Since we just do like they just write it and they don't edit themselves and then they just give it to another classmate.
Got it. Okay. Excellent. All right, let's move on. So we're in step 4 now. This is the editing page. Checking, or the editing stage, I should say. Checking for conventions. Does anybody know what we mean when we say conventions of writing? Erin.
Like grammatical and spelling
Exactly.
errors.
The whole technical side of writing. So that could be your punctuation, where to put an uppercase or a lowercase, any spelling, and then just general grammar that includes verb tenses and all of that. All right, back to you, Ethan. 2 points for editing.
Edit for correctness by checking for punctuation, capitalization, spelling, and grammar errors. Also ask someone else to check your writing for errors. Then prepare a neat final copy of your writing. Proofread this copy for errors before sharing it.
Yes, excellent. And so think about the most writing that you do for school. Ethan, is yours mostly written by hand or mostly typed up?
In my school, we do a hand wrote write written, and then we do final draft for and then we type it the final draft, and then we submit all of the rough draft and the final draft.
Oh, your whole process. Great. Elaine, mostly handwritten or mostly typed?
So basically we write our draft and then we type it onto the computer and then we edit and revise it on there and then we turn that into the teacher.
Excellent. So when you're revising it on the computer, do you use Grammarly or spell check of some kind to point out some errors for you?
No, usually we share with another friend for them to edit, and then
Yeah.
sometimes our teacher he uses an AI checker and puts it into our Google Docs and then checks it for us.
Okay. Excellent. And Erin, what about you? Mostly handwritten, typed, or a combination of both?
Typed.
Typed? Always typed?
Yeah, almost always typed. I mean, I might be confusing with like last year or like last year, but I'm pretty
Right.
sure this year it was always typed.
Okay, great. And Jimmy, mostly typed, mostly handwritten,
Always typed.
always typed. Okay, and you like that better?
I mean like I can use like I can like tell my friend to like check it like and it's just easier. Like you don't
Definitely.
just have to erase.
Perfect. Exactly. And easy to leave comments and things like that, right? Okay, on to step 5. So we're back to you, Elaine. We're now sharing your writing.
Share your finished work with your classmates, teacher, friends, and family members. Consider including your writing in your portfolio. Think about submitting your writing to your school newspaper or some other publication.
Lots of good ideas for publishing, although usually more often than not, I would guess all of our work is published by submitting it to our teacher. Is that fair to say? Yeah. Okay. So some important things to consider in your writing: your ideas, your organization, the voice you're going to use, your word choice, your sentence fluency, and your conventions. So what does all of that mean? All right, Erin, what do we mean by ideas?
Ideas. Select a topic that truly interests you, write a clear, focused statement, and present the important details about the topic.
Excellent. And organization, what are we talking about, Jimmy?
Include a beginning that attracts the reader, a middle that supports the focus, a closing that connects everything. Use transitions to link ideas.
Excellent. How many of you use transitions between your paragraphs or between your points in a paragraph? You do, Erin? Ethan? Yeah. Elaine? All of us? Same with you, Jimmy? Okay. So those are words like additionally, moreover, furthermore. Does anybody else have any that they like to use often? What do you use often, Ethan?
Like I just press I just wait what's it called? I
Your
press the enter button and then like that's how I space out.
Okay. And do you use any words to connect ideas together?
I don't really I don't really pay attention to that, so I don't know.
Fair enough. All right, let's look to voice, but that's something that we'll work on, Ethan, as we go forward in our writing. All right, Jimmy, what do we mean by voice?
Write the essay in a way that sounds informative and confident. Let the reader know that you are sincerely interested in the topic.
Excellent. All right, word choice, Ethan?
Use specific nouns, vivid verbs, and well-chosen modifiers. Explain or define any unfamiliar terms.
Perfect. A couple more here. Sentence fluency. What do we mean by this, Elaine?
Use a variety of sentence styles that flow smoothly and clearly from one idea to the text.
And so, what do we mean by variety of sentence styles? That could be short sentences, long sentences, trying to have diversity from one sentence to the next. What are you thinking, Ethan?
Like start from the basics, maybe complex and simple, compound complex and like complex and stuff like that. But I feel sentence styles, they're like I don't know how to express that.
Think about it, and we'll come back to that discussion later. All right, Erin, are you still with us? Erin, can you hear us? All right, Jimmy, let's go to conventions.
Make sure that you follow the rules for punctuation, capitalization, spelling, and grammar.
Excellent. Like we talked about earlier, that's important. All right. In everything that we've discussed now about the steps of the writing process, what's something that's maybe new to you or you hadn't really thought of? What do you think, Ethan?
Can you repeat the question again?
In everything that we've talked about for all these steps of the writing, including the things to consider here, what's something that you maybe don't often consider in your writing that's new to you, that you learned just through going through these slides?
Like maybe like paying attention to like what I use, like what are they like I might use like today in class, when the teacher asked the question, I wrote on my whiteboard bursted as the answer, but bursted isn't a word. So and then here it mentioned, I think it mentioned right now, the slides mentioned that like the word choice and things like that.
Yes. Very important. And so using a form of a verb that maybe doesn't exist would also be a part of the conventions that you have to look at in the editing process. How about you, Elaine? Anything new that you hadn't really considered or thought of?
Um, for the sentence fluency about the sentence styles,
Yeah.
I know I use different sentence styles, but it
Perfect.
hasn't occurred to me yet
Okay.
until, and
Looking at it
also
right now.
the voice part, I usually don't really focus on that because
Right.
that one's just like something that I don't focus on that much. Just
Right.
comes to
Okay, I'm glad you shared that. So we're all going to have the same homework, but when we get to that point, something we can specifically do is look at sentence fluency and a voice, having a certain tone in our writing as well. And with sentence fluency, here we're talking about the variety of sentence styles, but we can also think about the way that we start each sentence. So we're not saying I for every sentence, but trying to start in new and different ways. And what about you, Jimmy? Anything that was presented here that's new or something you hadn't necessarily thought of?
I mean, like I kind of knew voice, but I don't really use it.
Okay, excellent. So that's all about kind of choosing a tone. So whether you're taking a critical approach or an enthusiastic approach or a cheerful approach, does that make sense? Like the way that we might choose our words to communicate a certain idea
Yeah.
and make sure that people understand that we're really interested in the topic. Erin, are you able to hear us?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And anything from the slide so far that is new to you or something you hadn't thought of?
Um, I think it's most. I think that um, it would probably be the voice. It's usually
Okay,
that's not something I think about very much.
excellent. And that's a good point that a few others have mentioned. So as I said, the slides are on Google Classroom. We're going to go through an example of the assignment that we're eventually going to do together right now. And then you'll have access to all of this when you're actually doing your assignment for homework. So keep note of these particular slides and you can come back to them and just remind yourself of those details. All right, let's look at our first assignment. So we're going to write an essay that informs readers about an activity that performs physical fitness. And we're going to follow the 5 steps to do that. And I'm going to show you very, very specific examples of each step. And then at the end of this class, you'll be left to do the same thing yourselves. Anybody have any questions so far? All right, let's go to step 1. So as we talked about, this is the purple bubble on the left. This is the pre-writing. So if you think back to the topic, an activity that performs physical fitness. We're going to brainstorm. Here's what we came up with: swimming, volleyball, biking, soccer, judo, aerobics. Does anybody have any other ideas they could add to topics for their brainstorming? Yeah, Ethan.
Basketball.
Basketball would be a great one. Elaine? Tennis? Perfect. What do you like to do, Erin, to keep you active? Oh, did we lose you again, Erin?
Fencing.
That's a good one. Excellent. And Jimmy, if you had to write about something that you particularly enjoy, what would you choose?
Badminton?
Badminton's a really good one as well. All right. So this student, as an example, chose judo because, again, like we talked about already, choose a topic that you're most interested in and then started to collect her ideas. So looking at some background information, started around 1882 is when judo first began, based on jiu-jitsu. Judo, the word means the gentle way, and then that it's different, not like karate. That's one aspect that we can think about for judo, but it could work for any of your topics. Then for each of your topics, you want to think about equipment would be another topic. White uniform, the color of the belt indicates, excuse me, sorry, indicates the skill level. And then of course you would need mats. Another area that you could brainstorm for that you might write about in your essay would be the techniques. So in judo specifically, this student has identified throws where you have to take your partner down, a grapple, and what does that mean? How to control your partner, and break falls, which are how to actually fall in a safe way. And then a final topic that this particular student looked at, but you guys can choose to look at background, equipment, techniques, and benefits, or any of your own topics for whichever activity you're ultimately going to choose. For their benefits, as you can see, they brainstorm that it builds muscle strength, improves mental discipline, and helps opponents respect each other. So, do we all have an idea? Is this very similar to what you do in school in terms of brainstorming for an essay that you have to write? Is it a little bit more detailed than your usual brainstorming? A little bit less? Does anybody have an opinion to share? Elaine?
Usually when we're planning and pre-writing, we
Yeah.
don't start like this one. We just like use bullet points and plot out our ideas.
Okay, excellent. And Jimmy, are you kind of in the same boat where you bullet point, or do you do something a little bit more organized like this?
So our teacher just puts down like a graph, and it
Okay.
just like puts on a graph, and then you just write your like ideas in it. Like you have
Okay.
to split them into certain like topics. Not really like the one on the slide.
You do or do not?
I mean like I do it, but like it's like different compared to the one on the slide.
Okay, but similar idea, it sounds like. Elaine, did you have something to add to your answer? No? Okay. So, I mean, for brainstorming, it's a personal choice, and every student kind of has their own way, or you might, as some of you have described, have a teacher that presents it in a different way or kind of similar idea. This is just an example, but you're always free to use whatever strategy works best for you. If you find that you don't really have a strategy or it's not working that great, or you're looking at this thinking, maybe I have more ideas if I break it down like we've done here. Although I guess for some of you, like Jimmy, you mentioned that sometimes you have too many ideas, you have too much to say. So that's something that each of you are going to have to gauge and kind of weigh what works. But here's an example of something. And more importantly, examples of topics that you guys can think about for your writing assignment, the background of the activity or sport, the equipment you might need, the techniques, and the benefits. And so one of the slides talked about having a thesis or a focus statement. And so there's an example of that at the bottom. For this topic in particular, a focus statement, a thesis, what you're answering in your essay could be students involved in judo keep their bodies in top shape. Any questions about a thesis, or sometimes known as a focus statement? Everybody has a good understanding? Ethan?
Can you repeat what's a focus statement again?
Absolutely. So your essay should have a common idea that you're going to, with every argument, with every point, be proving. So for this topic, if you think back to the topic where you're writing an essay about a topic or an activity that keeps you in good physical form, what we're going to answer as we go through all of the information about the background, about the equipment, about the techniques, the benefits for the judo sport that we've chosen, our focus of the essay, where every argument, every point is going to try to connect back to prove this statement, could be something along the lines of students involved in judo keep their bodies in top shape. So it's ultimately what you're answering with every sentence, with every idea in your essay. Does that make sense, Ethan?
Not really.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll look at the actual essay and go through the steps, and maybe that'll give you a better idea. But if you still have that question later, we'll come back to you, okay?
Okay.
Erin, how are you doing? Any questions so far?
No.
Okay, let's move on then. So we are now in step number 2. And so this is the actual writing. And so what you can see on the screen here is a first draft, meaning that there are going to be errors in it, and that's okay. We want to just get our ideas out, like we talked about earlier, not interrupt our train of thought. All right, let's go one paragraph at a time. So we'll start from the top. The gentle way the student has titled her essay. Ethan, can I have you read the first paragraph?
There are different ways to be active. People like to skateboard or bike. Others like to play sports. Others enjoy working out or something else. A few people stay fit by doing judo. Judo is a fun sport with a health program. Students involved in judo keep their bodies in top shape.
Excellent. All right. So this is the first paragraph of our essay. It introduces the topic of judo by giving examples. And then it does include that focus statement. Okay, Ethan. So if you take a closer look here, do you see the last sentence of the introduction? All of you. Students involved in judo keep their bodies in top shape. That's reiterating, that's stating after going through a kind of captivating, engaging introduction, some general points about sports and activities, and then getting more specific about judo, we now introduce our answer, what we're going to be talking about. Any questions about that? All right, let's move on to now what's sometimes referred to as a body paragraph. That's where we're now trying to express our ideas, different from the introduction and conclusion. Elaine, can I have you read the first body paragraph, starting with most people?
Most people have heard of judo, but they don't know much about it. Neither punching nor kicking is used in judo. A man named Professor Jigoro Kano created the sport. Professor Kano based judo on jiu-jitsu. Judo focused on how to stay in shape, self-discipline, and character development.
Excellent. So do you all see how we're covering one topic here and we're providing some examples of that, going back to its origins, who created the sport, etc. So now we move on to a new topic. Erin, can I have you read the paragraph starting judo? Are you there, Erin? We'll come back to Erin. Jimmy, do you mind reading this one?
Judo equipment is very simple. Each student has a uniform that is tied with a belt that shows the student's rank. Junior students begin with a white belt and then move up. These belts help partners know each other's level so they can train and compete safely. Training is done on mats.
Excellent. All
During
right.
the last sentence.
It continues on, so we'll go to Erin if he's still with us. But let's look at the paragraph that Jimmy just read. So, like we talked about, we want to kind of group our ideas together based on topic. What's the topic that we're talking about in this particular paragraph? All the points connect to what big idea? Jimmy?
Judo?
Well, the whole essay is about judo, but then we want to break down each paragraph to talk about new ideas. So, what's the more specific idea about judo that's presented in this particular paragraph that you just read, Jimmy?
Like equipment?
Yeah, equipment and specifically the belts and the meaning of the color of the belts, right? So, I hope you're noticing and going to eventually recreate in your own writing different paragraphs like this. And Ethan, you can see that they've used the tab bar to indent their paragraphs, just like you mentioned that you did earlier. All right, let's keep going. Erin, are you there? Pardon me?
Yes, sorry, Erin has to leave, and yeah.
Okay, thanks
Yeah.
for letting us know.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care. All right, Ethan,
Thank
we'll
you,
come
bye.
back. Bye. We'll come back to you, Ethan.
Okay.
All right, so at the bottom, and then I'll flip to the next slide and you'll see the rest of your paragraph. The 3 basic.
The 3 basic judo techniques include throws, grapples, and break falls. Throws are the way to take an opponent down. They are made with specific movements. Grapples allow a student to control an opponent. A main objective in judo match is to hold an opponent on his back. Breakfall techniques help students avoid injury. These techniques are practiced over and over again during training sessions.
Excellent. All right. So do you see here how we have yet another paragraph still talking about the topic of judo, but focusing on one topic in particular? What topic is that for this one?
Like in what they do to like take an opponent down and how like they can like not get injured.
Yes, absolutely. And focusing on all the specific techniques. So when you guys eventually write about your sport or activity, you could do something very similar where you dedicate a paragraph to different techniques, for example. All right, Elaine, on to you. Another example of the way in which we can use sentence structure, vocabulary, etc., to talk about another topic related to the same big topic.
Judo has benefits for your body. It helps people lose weight if they're heavy and gain solid muscle if they're really skinny. It develops flexibility. Students are constantly bending and twisting. Judo makes people stronger because most of the training involves pushing against somebody. It improves a student's reflexes because they learn how to react quick to their opponent's move.
Excellent. Nicely read. Okay, what specific topic is this paragraph talking about? Still on the big topic of judo, but what do you think, Elaine?
Like how training with like doing judo helps you in like your body.
Yeah, exactly. And the benefits of the training for the body. Good. All right. So if you took notice, we started with that introduction. Then we broke it down into 3 separate idea paragraphs. Our first one about the history, our second one about the equipment, our third one about the techniques, and our fourth one about the benefits for the body. Do you all see that? And how we've developed an essay. This essay is about 500 words. All ideas, all sentences focused on that focus statement of students involved in judo keep their bodies in top shape, providing lots and lots of detail. Any questions about that so far? Does it all make sense? Is this very similar to the writing that you're coached to do at school? More or less? Okay, let's get to our conclusion. So, Jimmy, if you want to read for us and just wrap this up.
Judo students have self-confidence and discipline. Judo keeps them mentally fit. The goal is to master the basic techniques, not to smash somebody. Students can feel safe because judo has different belt levels. The instructors know what they're doing and have respect and confidence too. Students learn that judo is an honorable and gentle way of life.
Excellent. All right, let's all take a really close look at the conclusion. What are you noticing in the conclusion? Any points of interest? Anything that you notice? We'll start with you, Ethan. If you had to comment on the conclusion, what would you say? What do you notice in the conclusion?
Like to like master skills and like not to hurt somebody. But like, can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Because like I feel like if like people want to like learn judo and they read this, then I feel like they're not gonna really learn it because there's not really a purpose. If there's like a bad guy with like who is like a very like 3 tall grown-ups and like you and like you know judo, you're not the judos, you're like you're trying to like master techniques and like so judo I feel like is more a like not really a defense, not really an attack, but just like you learn skills and you just do it at home, but not to like for your own protection, safety, or anything.
You know what? I'm actually glad that you got that understanding because that relates very specifically to our focus statement that it's not to protect you from an attack, but to keep your bodies in top shape. So, if that's the understanding that we get by the conclusion, it means that this essay has effectively proven our focus statement. What did you notice, Elaine? Excuse me.
Conclusion is like every sentence is a conclusion. It's like a really short summary of each paragraph, and then in the end it just like summarizes a bit of like what the whole essay is talking about.
Absolutely. Great observation, Elaine. Really excellent. And that's exactly what's happened. They've gone back through their 4 paragraphs where they've discussed different topics, summarized each one into a sentence. That's what we're doing. We're concluding. And then we finish off with this final sentence that learning judo is honorable and a gentle way of life. Now, when you read Gentle Way of Life, did you notice, if you look back on this slide, that that's also the title of the essay? Did anyone catch that in the final line? The Gentle Way of Life is what they titled it, and it's the final words of their essay. All right, Jimmy, what did you notice in the conclusion? Anything new or different to add?
So like the conclusion just basically talks about all the benefits of judo and why you should do it.
Exactly, and restating the points mentioned in the essay, right?
Yeah.
Anything else from anybody? All right, so that's our writing phase. Did you guys happen to notice, like if we flip back, look at the first line of the second paragraph, most people have heard of judo. When we're talking about hearing something, is that how we spell heard? H-E-R-D? No, that would be like a herd of sheep, right? If we heard something, H-E-A-R-D. Did anyone catch that or notice that or any of the other spelling or grammar mistakes throughout?
Where?
Well, one that I see right jumps out at me is the second paragraph, first line. Most people have heard of judo. Elaine, what did you notice?
I'm pretty sure in the second sentence of the first paragraph, it says that people like to skateboard or bike. I'm pretty sure that skateboard is supposed to be one word and not 2 words.
Good catch. Excellent. Ethan, you've got your hand up. What do you see?
Like in the second sentence, others like to play sports and others like enjoying workout or something else. Like they're repeating other and so something else is like informal.
Absolutely. 2 really good points that would be important to correct in the revising and editing stages. Jimmy, did you notice anything? Or similar to what everybody else has picked up on?
I just noticed those 2.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, good catches, everybody. And that's why it's so important to go through the revising and editing stages. And one recommendation that I'll make to all of you, even if you're by yourself, is read your essay out loud. When you read it out loud, it forces you to slow down a little bit. And sometimes you notice that you're saying something different from the way that you're actually seeing it. Does anybody already use this strategy where we read aloud our text? Something to think about. All right, let's jump to revising. So here's some ideas of just different comments that we sometimes think about when we're doing the revisions. I need to add more details to support my main points. I should check my transitions to make sure that they help the reader follow my ideas. I must remember to sound confident and knowledgeable about my topic. Some words are too general. I should define the tough, challenging, unknown, different words. I could use sentence combining to improve the smoothness of certain parts. So, not to say that any of you need to fix these things specifically, but but it would be a good kind of checklist to come back to and remind yourself of when you're doing your homework this week. All right, here's an example of their third step, the revision step. So this, of course, can be done by hand, like some of you have mentioned that you've done. It can be done on a computer as well. Do you guys ever use suggestion mode in Google Docs, where you can actually type and you see things being deleted and added? Raise your hand if you've ever used suggestion mode in Google Docs. Elaine, you have? Ethan? Jimmy, do you ever use suggesting to be able to show? I know you said you do all of your work.
Wait, what's suggesting? Is it like it autocorrects?
It doesn't autocorrect, but what it does is when somebody, yourself or a peer, a classmate, makes changes, it sort of highlights them or puts them in a different color. It crosses out anything that you delete so that you can actually visually see the changes, kind of like what's done here.
Can I go get some water?
Pardon me?
Can I go get some water?
Absolutely. All right, so if we take a look here, we'll rejoin with Ethan when he gets back. You can see the exact same essay that we've already written with lots of corrections. Some of them are transitions to improve the flow of ideas. Some are new details that support the paragraph's main point. Some is details that make the voice sound more knowledgeable. So if you're particularly interested in voice, because that was kind of new to all of us, look specifically at the changes made here to show how they're communicating that voice. And then we get to the final publishing stage. So this here is what the full essay would look like. Ethan, while you're here, I'll just quickly restate that we've got a revised version on the screen now that you guys are free to look at, free to take a closer look at as you're doing your own, particularly the paragraph about the equipment. Judo equipment is very simple because as you can see in the yellow note, it talks about how these details were added in the revisions to make the voice sound more knowledgeable. And so we were all talking about how voice was kind of new to us, or maybe not something that we think about specifically. And so going and taking a close look at this paragraph's revisions as you do your own can be really helpful. Any questions about that? All right. So like I said, this is probably pretty similar to what your final products, your finished products look like when you submit to your teacher. Is that fair to say? Typed up, indents to show each paragraph, all the changes, all the edits have been made. Yeah? All right. So that brings us to your task. So your homework for this week is going to be answering the exact same question that we just went through all the examples of. The only thing that I would ask is that none of you do judo, okay? Let's look at new and different topics. You all mentioned some. Ethan, do you have a specific activity in mind that you might write about?
Basketball. I really like basketball.
Basketball, excellent. Elaine, what are you thinking? Not that you're held to whatever you say right now. What are you thinking for your activity though?
Swimming.
Swimming, great one. And Jimmy, badminton, or are you thinking something else?
Soccer.
Soccer, great. Okay, so you guys will write the essay, and on the next slide, because again, the slides are on the classroom for you, so you can come back and look at every single thing that we talked about, or at minimum, exactly what we want to do for our homework. So I'm going to ask you to write an essay, exactly the same prompt with all the examples that we looked at, that informs readers about an activity that performs physical fitness. And then I included a little checklist here. We want it typed, just so that it's easier to actually take a look at. Aiming for somewhere in the realm of 350 to 500 words. So the essay that you guys saw up on the screen back here is roughly 500. So a little bit shorter than that is fine, but let's try to keep it limited to 500. So that would be like an introduction, a conclusion, and then 3 or 4 different idea paragraphs. Important that you absolutely include an introduction and a conclusion paragraph. Take note of what we identified is included in the introduction paragraph, as well as the way in which the concluding paragraph restated, summarized each of the topics discussed, and then finished with a final comment. And then you also want to make sure that you've completed the 5 stages. So the pre-writing, your brainstorming, coming up with ideas. You're free to use your own strategies like we talked about for the brainstorming, or you can bring it back if we go all the way back to the beginning here, where they broke it down and they organized it into a chart like this, where they're going to talk about each idea for a different paragraph. I'll let you guys make the choice for this one, just reminding you that an option like this can often work really well. And then, of course, there's the actual writing stage of it where you guys will just write. Okay to have grammar mistakes, anything like that in your first draft, because then we get to the revision and then the editing stage. And then finally, the publishing stage, which is what you guys will ultimately submit for your homework. Does that make sense? Now, when you're asked to do writing like this at school, is like roughly 350, 500 words kind of typical, or are you used to writing much shorter or much longer? Elaine?
Usually we don't really have a word count, but
Okay.
usually more than like 500.
Okay. Well, I'll give you guys free rein to step outside of this if that's what you're more used to. I just wanted to give you kind of a ballpark if you weren't sure. Something like this would be a good amount. Of course, it kind of is in line, like I said, with what we looked at as an example. All right, with regards to anything that we discussed in the lesson today, going kind of slowly through a breakdown of the writing process that we'll pick up from next week, as well as looking at the specific example of the essay and your homework. Does anybody have any questions at all? Ethan, anything? Jimmy?
No.
Elaine, anything? Okay, so no questions, comments, concerns, complaints?